us now here in Washington, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. Welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Well, good morning. And thanks for having me, and happy anniversary. I know it's the first anniversary of your show, and so what a great accomplishment.
It's flown by. I hope that's a good sign. Yeah. Thank you very much, Governor. I was struck by this headline I saw a few days ago. It says this: Democrats and Republicans have been talking about school reform for years while everything has gotten worse. This is written by an English teacher in Dallas. He says Republicans are marginally better than Democrats, but they really haven't articulated a clear vision on this issue. What can your party do better?
Well, let me just begin with the fact that there's nothing more important than ensuring a quality education for our children. The future of Virginia, the future of America, will be built by them, and they need to be prepared to take on the challenges and take advantage of the opportunities that are ahead of them. And when I came in to the role as governor of Virginia, I was elected in November of 2021. I came into a Virginia that had been at the heart of the Parents Matter movement. And what we saw, of course, was, first of all, an effort to systematically lower expectations by the progressive left as standards were lowered. On top of that, parents were pushed out of their children's lives. And on top of that, schools were shut for an unnecessary period of time. Virginia was 44th in the nation in getting kids back into school. And the learning loss as a result has been catastrophic. And so we went to work right away. First, raising expectations, and second, empowering parents and making sure that they're at the head of the table in their children's lives. And finally, the fact that we have to combat this persistent learning loss where Virginia, which used to have the best schools, all of a sudden was ranked bottom of the pack in fourth grade reading and math and learning loss. And so we have launched a high-intensity tutoring program in order to help particularly our 3rd through 8th graders regain what they've lost. We've got a whole generation that's at risk, and we need to go to work right now. We have been clear in our policies. We have been systematic in moving forward, and I think we owe it to these children who will, in fact, define our future.
You mentioned this week that the test scores that came in were not great. There's room for improvement in Virginia, as there is in many places. So you talked about this program that you launched. There are critics out there, not surprisingly. The head of the Virginia Education Association, James Fetterman, says this: after 2 years, all he has to show is a string of bungled proposals, administrative scandals, a proposed budget with cuts to K through 12 spending in the 2nd year, and stagnating test results. Are the challenges bigger than you anticipated? Is that a fair criticism?
Well, I first of all want to step back and say, as we came in as a new administration, what we inherited was a group of children who had been, in fact, damaged by schools closed and lowered expectations. And of course, what's clear is 3rd through 8th graders had never been taught the foundational elements that were going to underpin the rest of their education. And so the learning loss was not only deep, but it's persistent. And therefore, we've got to put politics down and go to work. And that's why this high-intensity tutoring program is so important. It is 3 to 5 hours a week of tutoring for reading and math in the classroom, either before or during the day or after. The school systems get to decide. It's not going to cost families a penny. It's being funded by the state. And we have this moment where we see almost 2/3 of our 3rd through 8th graders at risk or failing their math standards, and more than half at risk to fail or failing their reading standards. There's no time for political jargon. It's time to go to work. And we've got to get this done now. We have a whole generation that's at risk.
Yeah, we wanted this to be a very bipartisan discussion today. We repeatedly asked the U.S. Secretary of Education, Cardona, to come and join us on the show. We were turned down. We offered a pre-taped interview. We were turned down for that. He has been out on a bit of a back-to-school tour. I want to play you a little bit of what he says about Republicans.
We have a party that's bent on creating division so that they could privatize schools.
He says that division shows up in toxic disrespect for LGBTQ people, that you're banning books. He says that's your party.
I believe this is representative of what the progressive left has been championing, which is, first, you don't know what's good for your children. We're going to push parents out of their kids' life. Second of all, we are going to emphasize equal outcomes over excellence and make sure that all children get the same education, when in fact we know that one size fits all means one size fits none. And then finally, on top of that, no one can argue with the fact that we have seen just catastrophic learning loss across this country because of bad policies by the progressive left. This is not a political statement. It's common sense. And on top of that, one of the biggest challenges we see today in Virginia and across the country is chronic absenteeism. What they taught our kids and families was that being not in school, thinking that a 12-inch screen was a quality education was okay. Well, what we know is it's not okay. And we've got to get kids back in the classroom. We've got to give them intensive support, and we've got to rescue this generation that's at risk.
So let's talk about some of the policies that your administration has put forward. Mike Emanuel was reporting about some of the controversial ones there, where you've given guidance to school districts that they need to have kids using facilities and functioning with the gender assigned at birth. And also that parents have to approve if a minor student is asking for changes to names and pronouns, those kinds of things. A judge in New Jersey has blocked similar policies that parents are backing up there. He says he's worried about evidence of mental health issues, suicide, illicit drug dependency, and infliction of physical or emotional harm by immediate family members for students who are forced to reveal these things. So first of all, how do you acknowledge those potential risks? And second, you've got a number of districts who say they're not going to comply. Can you enforce it?
Let me just start with where our policies are rested. It's empowering parents to be engaged in their children's lives. And the previous policies specifically excluded parents. And we know this is not right. A child can't go on a field trip without parental consent. A child in school can't get an aspirin or a Tylenol without parental consent. How in the world is it appropriate for a child to be guided and counseled by folks that are outside of their family on these most important issues when they're questioning their identity at school? Parents must be at the head of the table. This isn't controversial. The issue at hand is that, of course, there are protections in place if there's abuse at home, and those protections are appropriate. And this is where this argument becomes politicized. Let's just start with the truth that family counseling is the most effective counseling. Parents have a right in Virginia, a fundamental right to make decisions with regards to their child's education, their upbringing, and their care. It's clear. We're going to make sure that parents have that right. And finally, the school divisions that are thinking that they have a choice here don't. Our Attorney General, Jason Miyares, came out with a very, very clear opinion that it is in code, passed by the previous administration and signed by the previous Democrat governor, that I will issue model policies and the local school divisions will adopt policies consistent with those. There's no choice here. The only choice they have is to adopt policies that are exactly the ones that we have laid out or ones that are consistent with them. Unfortunately, they've been mistaken in their belief, and they need to go back and adopt policies consistent with the ones we've passed.
I want to ask you about one of these parents who's made headlines, because a lot of people will remember this case, this showdown in Loudoun County, which is outside D.C. here. He had a daughter who'd been sexually assaulted. He went to a school board. He was demanding information, trying to get answers. It got pretty heated at one point, and he actually got arrested. His name is Scott Smith. He expressed frustration this summer when he found out he was going to have to face trial this fall on a remaining charge. He said, "I have yet to hear from our governor, Glenn Youngkin." Is your administration in contact with him about his case?
We are in contact with him, and in fact, I spoke with Mr. Smith on Friday, and I had the privilege of telling Mr. Smith that I would pardon him. And we did that on Friday. We righted a wrong. He should have never been prosecuted here. This was a dad standing up for his daughter. And just to remind everyone, his daughter had been sexually assaulted in the bathroom of a school, and no one was doing anything about it. And in fact, it took the election of a new governor, me, and my directive to our Attorney General, Jason Miyares, to investigate this, to uncover the fact that the superintendent had in fact covered it up. And he was immediately terminated when the final report from the grand jury was issued. Mr. Smith did what any father would do, what any parent would do, was stand up for their child. And even worse, what then happened was the perpetrator was moved to another school and sexually assaulted another young woman. This was a gross miscarriage of justice, and I was so pleased to speak with him on Friday and be able to issue a full pardon for him.
You've talked a lot about Virginia's fall elections. Everybody's up for re-election in the state assembly, and you said that's your focus for now. But the Wall Street Journal notes this: if the November 7th elections go well for his party, Youngkin could make a late entry into the 2024 presidential race, a prospect he hasn't ruled out, and some national Republicans have pined for. I want to play a little bit of an ad that your PAC had up earlier this year, too.
We can usher in a new era of American values.
Looks a lot like a campaign ad, but you can't run again for governor in Virginia. What are you thinking about 2024? Are you definitively ruling it in or out?
Well, Shannon, I've been clear. I am so focused on 2023. It's the most important election in the nation, in my view. We have a chance to demonstrate that common sense conservative policies can, in fact, result in great outcomes. And when I look at what's happened in Virginia over the last 19 months since we had the great privilege of being hired, I am so encouraged because we have all of a sudden gone from near the bottom of job growth to near the top in job growth. We've seen the largest workforce in Virginia's history. More Virginians working than ever. We've reduced taxes. We've backed law enforcement. We've reestablished expectations of excellence in school and empowered parents. And what gets me most excited is that, yes, people around the country are noticing, and they think it's good. I'm most focused on Virginians thinking that it's good, and that's what we're focused on this fall.
That sounds like a stump speech.
Well, I don't think it sounds like a stump speech. I think it sounds like the truth. And the reality is that we have, in fact, brought a whole new way of governing to Virginia, a way of governing that reflects work and results and reflects conservative common sense values. And we have made great change in a very short period of time.
Okay, any way you would take those skills to running in 2024 for the presidency?
Well, as I've said, I'm not in Iowa at the state fair. I was actually at the Rockingham County Fair, and yesterday I was supporting one of our delegates outside Petersburg. I'm campaigning in Virginia for Virginians, not around the country.
Okay, I will leave that as the door. Still seems like maybe there's a little crack open there. Governor, thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Thank you for covering education. There's nothing more important in our nation than making sure that these future generations are receiving the quality education they deserve to lead and to face the challenges that we will all know they will.
We got to do it for our kids.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.